Hello, everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most absolutely crucial systems in our entire body, the digestive system. Now, we're drawing on some fantastic material from StudyWithAmfeen for this one. And listen, we're not just going to sit here and memorize a boring list of organ names today. No way. We're going to figure out what actually happens to our food once we eat it. I mean, think about a really simple meal. You take a bite, you chew it up, you swallow, and then almost like magic, your body somehow pulls all these useful nutrients out of that food. It uses them for energy, for growth, for repair, and literally countless other vital functions. But how does that actually work? Where does the food even go once it passes your throat? Which organs are rolling up their sleeves to get the job done? Where does the real digestion take place? And how on earth does the body absorb those nutrients? Well, that is exactly what we are going to unpack in this explainer. So here's our roadmap for today. By the end of this journey, you're going to have a crystal clear picture of the whole setup, from the mouth all the way down. We'll be looking at 1, what the digestive system actually is. 2, the gastrointestinal tract. 3, the mouth, where it all kicks off. 4, the pharynx and esophagus. And 5, the stomach, which handles storage and digestion. All right, let's jump right in at the very beginning. Section 1. What is the digestive system?
Fundamentally, it's a team of organs working together to take in food, break it down, absorb the good stuff, and get rid of the waste. Honestly, you can just think of it like a giant biological processing plant. Step 1, the raw material, the food, enters. Step 2, the body processes it. Step 3, the useful substances get absorbed. And step 4, whatever we don't need gets shown the exit as waste.
Now, what's kind of cool is that we divide these organs into 2 major squads. First up is the gastrointestinal tract, which you'll often hear called the GI tract or the alimentary canal. And second, we have the accessory digestive organs. We're going to break both of these down for you. Let's move right along to section 2, the gastrointestinal tract. Basically, the GI tract is just one really long, continuous muscular tube. It starts at your mouth and goes all the way down to the anus. So the food you eat is actually traveling entirely inside this one continuous tunnel. The major stops along this route, in exact order, are the mouth, the pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, the rectum, the anal canal, and finally the anus. Knowing this exact chronological order is pretty much the key to understanding how the whole system operates. So let's follow a single bite of food down this pathway. Which brings us to section 3, the mouth, where digestion begins. Yup, the whole process kicks off the second food hits your mouth. And there are 2 main things happening right away: mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Let's look at the mechanical side first. When you're chewing, your teeth are literally just mashing the food into smaller chunks. You're not changing the chemical makeup of the food at this point, you're just shrinking the pieces down. And why do we do that? Well, smaller pieces mean a much larger overall surface area, and that makes it a whole lot easier for digestive enzymes to swoop in and do their thing a bit later. But right at that very same moment, the chemical side is also firing up. Your salivary glands start pumping out saliva, which mixes with the food so you can actually swallow it comfortably. But here's the kicker. Saliva is packed with a specific enzyme called salivary amylase. This little enzyme's job is to kickstart the chemical breakdown of carbohydrates, especially starches. So if you take nothing else away from this section, remember this. Carbohydrate digestion begins right there in your mouth. It gets a massive head start on everything else. Of course, your teeth aren't working alone. Your tongue is a huge player here. It acts kind of like a mixer, blending the food and saliva together into a soft, round little mass called a bolus. Once that's ready, the tongue just shoves that bolus straight to the back of your mouth to be swallowed, and down it goes to the next station. Moving into section 4, the pharynx and esophagus. Right after you swallow, that bolus travels through the pharynx and drops into the esophagus. Now, the esophagus is this long muscular tube that basically acts as a highway connecting your throat to your stomach. And here is a super important point. The esophagus doesn't actually digest your food. Not really. Its one and only job is simply transport. But you might be wondering, how does it physically push the food down? Well, it uses this incredibly coordinated muscular movement called peristalsis. Basically, peristalsis is a series of wave-like muscle contractions rippling right down the walls of the digestive tract. The best way to picture this, imagine grabbing a fresh tube of toothpaste and squeezing it from the bottom. That pressure forces the paste upward and out. It's exactly the same concept inside you. The muscles contract right behind the food, pushing it forward, while the muscles ahead of it relax to let it through. And this wave-like squeezing process, it keeps going through almost the entire GI tract. All right, section 5, the stomach, storage and digestion. So, our bolus of food has just surfed that wave of peristalsis straight into the stomach. If you're trying to visualize it, the stomach is a muscular, J-shaped organ that sits mostly in the upper left part of your abdomen. Now, this organ is an absolute multitasker. It has 3 huge jobs. First, it's a temporary holding tank for your food. Second, it mechanically churns and mixes everything up. And third, it starts doing some heavy lifting with chemical digestion, specifically when it comes to proteins. To get all this done, the stomach relies on its gastric glands, which pump out gastric juice. This juice is a potent mix of digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid. That acid drops the pH, creating a highly acidic environment that's absolutely vital. Not only does it wake up certain dormant enzymes, but it acts as an internal security guard, wiping out a lot of the microbes that inevitably hitch a ride in on your food. One of the real star players in this acidic pool is an enzyme called pepsin. Pepsin absolutely loves this harsh environment. Once it's activated by the acid, it immediately gets to work tearing apart complex protein structures. Let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First up, the stomach's mixing chamber, followed by digestion central in the small intestine, and a look at exactly how we absorb nutrients. Then we'll cover the large intestine's role with water and waste, check in on the accessory organs at work, and finally wrap it up with the 4 fundamental steps of digestion. Section 1, the stomach's mixing chamber, where protein digestion begins. When we think of the stomach, we honestly usually just picture a simple storage pouch, right? But in reality, it's a highly active, totally muscular organ. The thick muscular wall of the stomach forcefully contracts, physically churning and mixing the food you've just eaten with highly acidic gastric secretions. This intense, acidic environment is exactly where protein digestion mainly begins. It's breaking down those tough, complex protein structures from your food into something the body can actually start to work with. So after all that intense churning, your food becomes this thick, kind of semi-liquid mixture known as chyme. But here's the thing. The stomach doesn't just dump all this chyme into your intestines at once. No way, that would totally overwhelm your system. Instead, it acts like a highly controlled pressure valve. It gradually releases just small amounts of chyme through a specialized muscle called the pyloric sphincter, passing it precisely into the very first part of the small intestine. Moving right along to section 2, the small intestine, aka digestion central. This is the main site of chemical digestion and nutrient absorption. We have arrived at what is arguably one of the most important parts of the entire digestive system. The small intestine is this incredibly long, tightly coiled tube, and it's divided into 3 distinct parts: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. That highly acidic chyme from the stomach enters the very first section, the duodenum, and it's right here that the chyme mixes with absolutely crucial digestive secretions from your accessory organs, setting the stage for the serious chemical breakdown of your food. A massive part of that chemical breakdown is all about handling dietary fats, which brings us to emulsification. See, your liver produces a substance called bile, which gets stored in the gallbladder and then released into the small intestine. Bile works almost exactly like dish soap on a greasy pan. It doesn't actually digest the fat itself. Instead, it emulsifies it. It breaks those large, stubborn fat droplets into much smaller ones. This dramatically increases the surface area, which allows digestive enzymes like pancreatic lipase to swoop in and do their job so much more efficiently. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate goal of all this chemical digestion: systematic dismantling. These massive, complex food molecules are being broken down into usable, tiny molecules. Carbohydrates, they're broken down into simple sugars, like glucose. Proteins are further reduced into amino acids and small peptides. And those fats we just talked about are broken down into fatty acids and monoglycerides, basically making fuel perfectly accessible to your cells. Which brings us to section 3, how we absorb nutrients. Let's look at the microscopic machinery of the small intestine. Okay, so we know the food is broken down now. But here is the million-dollar question. How does the small intestine actually extract and absorb these microscopic nutrients so incredibly efficiently into the rest of the body? The secret is in its brilliant architectural design. The inner surface of your small intestine isn't just a flat, smooth pipe. It is covered in millions of tiny, finger-like projections called villi. And the individual cells covering those villi have even smaller projections called microvilli. Think about trying to clean up a spill. A flat, smooth piece of paper won't absorb much of anything. But a highly textured, thickly folded towel, that'll absorb entirely. By folding and projecting outward like this, the small intestine creates a massive surface area designed purely for maximum nutrient absorption. Now, inside each of those tiny villi, there are two totally distinct transportation routes: blood capillaries and a lymphatic vessel called a lacteal, and they handle completely different cargo. Water-soluble nutrients, like your simple sugars and amino acids, well, they are absorbed directly into the blood capillaries. However, most of the dietary fats take a completely different path. They enter the lacteals and actually travel through the lymphatic system first before eventually being delivered into the bloodstream. It's a highly specialized sorting facility happening constantly as food moves through your jejunum and ileum.
All right, Section 4, the large intestine, dealing with water and waste and processing the remaining material. Once most of the nutrients have been carefully extracted by your small intestine, the leftover, indigestible material moves right along to the large intestine. It travels a continuous physical path here, starting at the cecum, moving up, across, and down through the ascending, transverse, descending, and sigmoid colon, before finally reaching the rectum, the anal canal, and the anus. Now, a lot of folks think the large intestine is simply a storage bin for waste. Actually, scratch that. It performs a super vital, active function. Its primary job is the absorption of water and electrolytes from that leftover material. As it diligently extracts this water, the initially liquid contents become progressively more and more solid, gradually forming feces. Without this crucial water reclamation step, we would dehydrate very quickly. Plus, your large intestine is literally teeming with life. It is home to a massive population of microorganisms, collectively known as the gut microbiota. These incredible microscopic allies interact with the remaining intestinal contents and actually contribute to essential bodily processes. They even help with the production of certain vitamins that your body absorbs and utilizes, right before the final waste is stored in the rectum.
Section 5, accessory organs at work. This is our critical supporting cast. We've touched on a few of these already, but we really need to give a shout out to the accessory organs. Food never actually physically passes through them, but digestion would be literally impossible without their support. Your teeth perform the very first mechanical breakdown. The tongue mixes the food and helps you swallow. Salivary glands produce saliva to kickstart chemical digestion early on. The liver produces that crucial bile and handles tons of other important metabolic functions, while the gallbladder strategically stores, concentrates, and releases that bile exactly when you eat fats. And then there's the pancreas. This organ is a serious multitasker. It does double duty. It has an exocrine role, meaning it produces and pumps powerful pancreatic juice, which is absolutely packed with digestive enzymes, straight into the duodenum to break down carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and nucleic acids. But it also has a massive endocrine role, producing vital hormones like insulin and glucagon, which are what regulate your blood sugar levels system-wide. Finally, Section 6, the 4 steps of digestion. Let's put this entire journey together. 4 words. Ingestion, digestion, absorption, and defecation. You already understand the basic job of the digestive system.
Section 11. What happens to the 3 main food groups? Let's make this even easier. Suppose you eat a meal containing rice, chicken, and some oil.
The rice mainly provides carbohydrates. The chicken provides a lot of protein, and the oil provides fat. So what happens to them?
For carbohydrates, digestion begins in the mouth with salivary amylase. It continues mainly in the small intestine. Eventually, carbohydrates are broken down into simple sugars that can be absorbed. For proteins, digestion begins mainly in the stomach. It continues in the small intestine with pancreatic and intestinal enzymes. Eventually, proteins are broken down into amino acids and other small absorbable products. And for fats, most digestion occurs in the small intestine. Bile helps emulsify the fat. Pancreatic lipase then helps digest it. The resulting products are absorbed through the intestinal lining, with most dietary fat entering the lymphatic system first. So you can remember, carbohydrates become simple sugars, proteins become amino acids, fats become fatty acids and monoglycerides. These smaller molecules can then be absorbed and used by the body.
Section 12, the overall journey of food. Now let's imagine we are following one bite of food.
You take the food into your mouth. Your teeth break it down. Saliva mixes with it. The tongue helps form a bolus. You swallow. The bolus passes through the pharynx and then the esophagus. Peristalsis moves it into the stomach.
The stomach stores and mixes it with gastric juice. Protein digestion begins here. The food becomes chyme.
The chyme enters the duodenum. Here, it meets bile from the liver and gallbladder and digestive secretions from the pancreas. Digestion continues. Then the contents move through the jejunum and ileum, where most nutrient absorption occurs.
The remaining material enters the large intestine. Water and electrolytes are absorbed. The remaining material forms feces. The feces move into the rectum and are eventually eliminated through the anus. So that entire journey is basically the story of the digestive system.
Section 13, Quick Revision. Before we finish, let's quickly revise everything. The digestive system consists mainly of the GI tract and accessory organs. The GI tract includes the mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, anal canal, and anus. The small intestine has 3 parts: the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. The large intestine includes the cecum, colon, rectum, anal canal, and anus. The major accessory organs are the teeth, tongue, salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas.
And the major functions are ingestion, propulsion, mechanical digestion, chemical digestion, absorption, and defecation.
Most digestion and absorption of nutrients occur in the small intestine. The stomach mainly stores, mixes, and begins protein digestion. The large intestine mainly absorbs water and electrolytes and helps form and store feces. And the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas provide important secretions that support digestion. So that's the complete overview of the digestive system. Don't try to memorize everything at once. First, understand the pathway of food. Once you understand where the food goes, the functions of each organ become much easier to remember.
In our upcoming explainers, we can go deeper into each part, starting with the mouth and salivary glands, then the esophagus and stomach, followed by the small intestine, digestive enzymes, bile, pancreas, absorption, and finally the large intestine.
If this explanation helped you understand the digestive system, don't forget to save this explainer for revision and share it with someone who is studying anatomy and physiology. And if you're preparing for MBBS, BDS, BPT, nursing, pharmacy, or any allied health course, follow StudyWithAmfeen because we are going to cover these concepts step by step in a very simple way. Before you go, ask yourself, how might understanding this exact sequence change how we treat chronic digestive issues? I'll see you in the next class.